Welcome, everybody, to Sound Vision International TV. My name is DJ Patrick. I'm your host of the show, and today is April 24th, 2012, and you're listening to program number 51. We've been doing a series recently about AV troubleshooting. Basically, what's wrong with the system? It's a question that often comes up in, many of our church services, our special events, community events, concerts, theater productions, you name it. It happens wherever, audiovisual is present. And to us as audiovisual engineers, we need to know the answers to these things and when they happen. And that's what this particular series is about. And we've been kind of discussing certain solutions and precautions that you can take as an audiovisual engineer to make sure that your video system's working well, to make sure that your audio system's working well, and that you're able to tackle the problems when they arise. So Sound Vision International TV is here for you to help build a community of audiovisual techs, and specifically those who work or volunteer in the church. That's what this show is for. It's catered to you, so we hope that this has been a help to you, and we trust that you've been able to get some things from it. I know it's been great for me to be able to host a show and to be able to bring this information to you. And there's a number of you who've written in and expressed your thoughts and how it's helped you get through certain things as well. So we appreciate that. So don't forget, while listening to the show and after you listen to the show, be sure to post your comments on our website. Our website is www.soundvisionintl.com. And also, we have a Facebook page as well. Be sure to like our Facebook page. It's Sound Vision International, spelled out at Facebook. And we're having our discussions there. Post your question, your comment, or anything else that you'd like to say regarding the show. You can also post your comments on Twitter. We're on Twitter live tonight. Sound Vision INTL is the handle at Twitter. So we appreciate all your comments. It helps us to do better. And it also helps to assure that we're, getting all of your needs met in regards to the different questions and things that you have in your particular situation. So thanks again for listening. And we trust that this particular series will be of help to you. I know in doing some of the interviews and reading some of the articles and things that we've put together for the show, that it brings a lot of enlightenment, my way, and I trust that it'll do the same for you. A couple of announcements before we get right into the meat of the show. The Audio Engineers Society here in the Atlanta chapter is having a workshop. So for those of you who want to continue to grow and to learn more, as I'm sure we're all always doing, you can never know enough. But Mount Perrin Church, May 12th, here in Northwest Atlanta, Mount Perrin Church, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., there'll be a live sound workshop. So for those of us who are involved in live sound, they'll be having a panel discussion there. They'll be discussing topics such as wireless microphones, DSP-based processing for amplifiers, speakers, sound systems, you name it. So that's going to be a great workshop to attend. So I trust that those of my listeners, or a good portion of my listeners here from the show, will be there. Those of you who I interact with on a regular basis throughout the city, it's going to be a great workshop. So I'll be there. I trust that we'll see you there as well. So don't forget, May 12th, Mount Perrin Church, Northwest Atlanta, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. We have a live sound workshop. There'll be many engineers there from all over the city. There is a wealth of knowledge in the Audio Engineer Society here in Atlanta. As you all know, Atlanta is a growing city as far as music production, film production, large church production. It's all there. So all these engineers will be there, and we'll be able to learn from each other and learn from the panelists and so forth. So don't forget, May 12th, Mount Perrin Church, Northwest Atlanta, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. live sound workshop. Okay? So with that said, let's get into some of our interviews in regards to our topic and series for these couple of weeks. AV troubleshooting. What's wrong with the system? What are some of the things that we could do about it? Let's listen to Jaron King, who's a engineer here in the Atlanta area, and then let's also hear from some others as well. We have Jaron King on the line with us, and he's going to talk a little bit about his experience in church production and just sound ministry and things that he's come across. So, Jaron, are you there?
Hey, DJ, how you doing, man?
Hey, good, man. Thanks for calling the show, man. Glad to have you on.
Oh, no problem, man. Thank you for having me on. But real quick, I just want to go over a few things that I learned in my career in dealing with church sound. I mean, first of all, I realized that we're distributors of the word.
Right.
And also, we are the pharmacists of the word as well. I mean, we bring healing to a lot of hurting people. So which means we have to be on our game.
Right.
The good thing about what we do is you only get one shot at this thing, called sound.
Yeah.
I mean, because, really you only do it as your last show. So you got to make sure you take, precautions and steps to prevent things from happening. And kind of always stay ahead of the game as well to make sure that you alleviate problems down the road. Because, again, what we do is so important.
Right.
But some of the things that, one thing I want to start with is, first, man, you got to be able to develop an ear for sound.
Definitely.
I mean, that is so important. And, man,
Right.
I can't tell you how many times that I'm always making sure that I listen at, how different, if I go to a concert, how does it sound there, and how can I replicate that sound for my ministry? Things that I hear on the radio, I mean, that's, to me, those are the standards. Because think about this: how do you know how to EQ, let's say, a tom in a drum set? How do you know how to EQ a tom? It doesn't come with the manual.
That's right.
Unless you've heard how a tom sounds.
Right. Right.
Yep. How do you know how to EQ a kick drum that doesn't come with a manual unless you know how a kick drum should sound?
Right.
So, man, you got to constantly be developing your ear to developing an ear to hear, how things should sound. Okay. Because the difference between a good engineer and a great engineer is their ears.
Right.
Good engineer, difference between an average engineer and a master engineer is pretty much their ear.
Definitely.
So what do we do as far as making sure that we stay ahead of the game? Man, you have to start with before every service, you have to make sure you start with a pre-checklist. Some of the things that I would always do is make sure, of course, the most important thing, I want to make sure that my microphones, all the mics that I'm using are tested.
Right.
I know it may sound so basic, but, man, I can't tell you how many times that when you take minor things like that for granted, like testing it, because you think from last Sunday it worked perfectly.
Yeah. Definitely.
But this Sunday is a different Sunday.
Right.
So you can't expect that from last week that is going to operate the same. So you leave nothing to chance. So you want to make sure, man, you do your basic checks. And some of my basic checks included, pretty much running through every microphone that I knew that I was going to use,
right,
and testing them.
Right.
And also, let me back up for a quick second. You want to get with your, choir director, your pastor, as well, to even make sure that how many people are going to be singing today. How many people are going to be speaking today.
Right.
And that way you make sure you even have the right type of layout for the service, because it can differ, okay?
Right.
Who's singing a solo in the choir today, so you won't be caught off guard, if there's a soloist, in the choir today, or how many praise team leaders are going to be singing praise and worship.
Right.
So little things like that you want to do, and then you want to go through and you want to test every single microphone. And also, here's the biggest thing, because here's the thing that we have to alleviate in our churches a lot, and that is the number one, to me, demon is the feedback.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
And that is a big problem in our churches, and pretty much you can alleviate a lot of that, man, if you take some of the cautions or the steps up front. One thing that we would always do is take a microphone, put it down by the speaker, and let's see how far I can crank that baby up before it starts to feed back.
Yep, definitely.
So if I take it, or if I have a person, I say stand at the microphone, get your buddy or somebody, stand at the microphone and have somebody on the board max out as close to the threshold before it starts feeding back. And that way you can set a marker to say, okay, here's how far I can go.
Right.
Because, the funny thing is we all know that, I always believe most preachers are deaf.
Yeah.
I mean, I just believe that, and I know probably no truth in that, but a lot of them, man, I just can't understand why they can't hear. They always want more and more and more.
Right.
And somebody in the congregation can't hear, but, man, set your threshold, your markers, your levels to make sure that you know how far you can go before that microphone starts to feed back. So basic things like that can help you, stay out of trouble. Also, a few more things is, a a lot of times we would come in if we had a problem last Sunday. Man, I would come in the very next day and try to figure out what was it so we don't replicate that problem again the next service.
Definitely.
You know, you can't just walk away from it. If you had a challenging service, man, you just can't walk away from it. So, you know, hey, we just had a bad day today. You know, no, jump on it tomorrow. Jump on it right after. So you don't get yourself in a position where you burn again the next service or the, you know,
right,
or the next time you step up to the board. And remember your mistakes, man. I believe what makes a good engineer from a great engineer, an average engineer from a master engineer, is they learn from their mistakes. You know, I can't tell you how many times I got burnt in certain areas that really I was kind of hard on myself on, but I said, man, you know what? I'm never going to make that mistake again. Right. I promise you. I might get burned somewhere else, but I ain't going to get burned doing that again.
Yeah.
You know, I won't get burned not making sure that daggone, when we were, you know, recording on tapes, I remember I forgot to flip the switch to make sure the thing flips over at the end.
Yep.
And I got burned, but you best believe that's the one time I made that mistake.
Right.
You know.
So when those mistakes happen, would you immediately go remind yourself or give yourself a visual checklist so those things don't happen again, or how would you?
I mean, to me, I used to take it so hard that you know, every time I step back up to the plate, which is, you know, the next time I had to do a service, I will always remember those things, you know, because again, if you have your pre-checklist, and if you have to write it down to make sure, make sure the tape deck is flipped over. I know we're in the CD era now, but you know, whatever you have to do to make sure that you don't alleviate those mistakes by doing your pre-checklist, you know, before service, man, do it, because it's only going to save you.
Right.
You know, it's going to alleviate a lot, because you got a lot of microphones, you got a lot of people to mix, you got a lot of things going on all at the same time.
Right.
Save yourself some trouble to make sure you get that list jotted down so you don't make those mistakes.
Right.
Okay? And you know, with saying that is pretty much saying leave nothing to chance. You know, you can't leave it to chance. You know, get up on the stage, go through the monitors, you know, again, test out every instrument, you know, I mean, to the T, check your connections.
Right.
You know, I can't stress that enough, where sometimes you may have a connector that's kind of hanging out. It may still be working, but doing service, what can go wrong will go wrong. And that one thing that was kind of sticking out now is all the way out, and you know, you're trying to figure out why I can't get organ, or why I can't get bass, why I can't, you know, so many things can happen, but man, you have to make sure that you're doing those checks before to make sure you stay ahead of that game, okay? And don't believe, and this is my last point, first service is always different from second service. Now, I tell you this, in all my understanding and all my logic, that doesn't seem right. Well, shouldn't first service be the same as second service?
Right.
Everything in me tells me it should be the same, but I don't know what it is, but it's not. You know, again, me understanding that I will not leave anything to chance. I have to make sure after first service is over, before second service, if you have two services, man, get up there and do your checks again. You know, go through the microphones, go do a test on the stage to make sure batteries are changed. You know, you don't want to get burned by a battery. I've been burned by a crazy battery before.
Right.
Then change out the battery. Oh, it was good.
Yeah.
No, I'm not leaving that to chance. I'm going to put a new battery in there. I don't care how much it costs.
Right, definitely.
You know, you don't want to be burned by a battery.
Right.
But people gotten burned by batteries before. I have. So, you know, just basic things like that, man. If you do your checklist, your pregame checklist, any team that plays a sport, they have a checklist before they actually go out on the field. You know, our field is, you know, in front of a crowd as well. And you just have to make sure that you go through all the necessaries to make sure it's a successful service, you know? Because what we do, I believe, more so importantly than any other thing is, you know, we distribute the work. You know, we change lives, so you have to make sure that you're doing your part so you don't hinder those words or that word from going forward.
Definitely. Well said, man. Well said. Well, hey, we appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, that's about it, man. You know, let's take it to another level, folks. Because I don't know about you, but I'm tired of flipping on TVs and hearing feedback when it comes to the church. I think this is the most comical channel on TV.
Right.
You know, and it's because we haven't looked and developed our ears and developed our sight to make sure that we're at least doing the standards of what everybody else is doing.
Right.
So we got to be on our game, man. You got to get better, man. Get the TV productions, go to the workshops, these things that DJ are doing these forums, man, they're great, man. Use that opportunity to get better at your craft.
Right, definitely. Appreciate it. So that's Jaron King, everybody. Live sound engineer, broadcast engineer. He's definitely one of the top engineers here in the Atlanta area that I've met, and a wealth of information. Hey, we appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again.
Thank you, DJ.
All right.
Okay,
Bye. So thanks once again for joining the show tonight. We appreciate you joining in, and we appreciate all of your comments and things that you posted for us. And be sure to join us back here again next week, same time, same place, 9 p.m. Tuesdays is our live show, and then our archives and on-demand sessions are available 24/7. So thanks again, and we'll see you again next week.